The Royal Game of a two-player game that dates back to around 3000 BC, making it the oldest board game that we know of. Boards were discovered in the royal tombs at one of which still exists in the British Museum. Over time, various rules have been hypothesized by academics and game scholars alike. I'll be teaching you Irving Finkel's version of rules, which he translated from a cuneiform tablet that was found in 177 BC, as they're considered the most widely accepted. Later on in the video, I'll go over some of the known variants so that you can experiment and ultimately decide on your preferred set of rules. Start by giving each player a set of 5 pieces. The pyramids act as the dice, each have 4 corners, 2 of which are highlighted. The result of a roll is determined by the number of highlighted corners pointing upwards. If the roll does not result in any highlighted corners pointing upward, the player loses their turn. So let each player roll the dice. Whoever gets the highest result goes first. The goal of the game is to be the first player to get all of your pieces around and borne off the board. I've highlighted each player's starting space along with their designated path around the board. Start your turn by rolling the dice and moving one of your pieces along your path according to the result. You have the option to move an already placed piece or introduce a new one to the board. Pieces may only ever move forward, and you may never land on a space already occupied by your own piece. If you ever become stuck and can't move any of your pieces, your turn is lost. The only symbol on the board with any significance are the Rosettes. The other symbols varied from board to board and therefore are not believed to be of any importance to the game. If you happen to land on a rosette, you get to roll again. You are not required to move the same piece for your second roll. If the second roll results in you landing on another rosette, you get to roll once again, and so on until a piece that you decide to move does not land on a rosette. So let's shift our attention to the middle row. We'll call it the battle row. You share these spaces with your opponent on your path to victory, therefore making it possible to land on a space occupied by one of their pieces, at which point your opponent's piece would be removed from the board and put back into their start pile. In addition to being awarded a second roll, the rosette on the battle row is a protected space, meaning neither player may land on it if it is occupied by their opponent. If you happen to land on it, it would be wise to move a different piece for your second roll in order to take advantage of the protection the space provides. When one of your pieces finds itself within 4 or less spaces from being borne off the board, you will need to roll the exact number needed to bear off. For example, if your piece lands on this space here, you would need to roll an exact 4 to bear off the board. If you rolled a 3, 2, or a 1, you would not be allowed to move this specific piece any closer to the edge of the board. As the odds of rolling a 2 are most likely when playing with 4 pyramids, you may want to strategize having your piece land 2 spaces away from being borne off the board, as this would give you the best odds of doing so on your next turn, while simultaneously removing yourself from the battle row, eliminating the threat of being landed on by your opponent. The first player to have all 5 of their pieces borne off the board wins the game. I'll now go over a few of the variants involving the pieces and the pathways. First, you may try having each player start with 7 pieces instead of 5, and/or use 3 pyramids instead of 4. If you decide to play with only 3 pyramids, a roll that ends with no highlighted corners pointing up results in a 4. It no longer becomes possible to roll a 0 and lose your turn. You may also want to experiment with the other accepted pathways. Here's a path that makes for a bigger battle zone and a longer game, and here's an extended version of that path for an even longer game. On the extended version, pieces travel back down the battle row and eventually bear off their starting space instead. No matter which path you decide upon, your opponent's path should always be mirrored to yours. You can experiment with these piece and path variants until you decide on your preferred set of rules. And that's it. You're now ready to play the Royal Game of If you're interested, I've linked a playthrough video published by the British Museum with Irving Finkel himself in the description of this video. Until next time, thanks for watching.